Great. Well, we certainly appreciate it, John, and we look forward to future episodes in this series. Excellent. Excellent.
I hate the way you said that.
What?
That last thing, it sounded really pandering.
Well,
You can take that out.
Yeah, I know.
We'll have some nice English lady dubbing.
Dub it in.
Dub it in.
No, it sounds fake the way you said it.
Well, the whole thing's
Well,
fake.
Go ahead and say it then.
Are we scamming everybody here?
Yeah.
John, that was great. I think you did wonderfully on that. It's a good presentation.
Well, I mean, how else could I do it? I mean, it's.
It does sound better.
I like the way you pointed out that it would be a god to somebody who had no
Right,
experience.
exactly. If you don't experience it, hey, Pat, if we walk outside tonight in this big bright light and this guy in a robe is up there, we're going to go, ooh.
The first thing I'll say is hologram.
Yeah, right, exactly what I'd say, but are you done?
On the weekends when they did their public service broadcasting. And it was during those weekends I got an awful lot of religion and an awful lot of talk. But there was, for me, an oasis in the middle of that public service sea, or desert, called Town Hall. And I recall that I always looked forward to those broadcasts that came from here. And listening to Town Hall over the years, I am quite sure that I learned a great deal about America then. And it had a great impact on the kind of American I am now. And I hope that's some sort of a recommendation. It may not be. But I assure you that in queuing up those tapes as a young broadcaster, it never occurred to me that I might one day, myself, would be standing before you. And I'm honored to be here, and I thank you very much for your invitation. But I think to be here today in this place at this time is very fitting that it be done at Town Hall. By and large, many of the members of Town Hall, the movers and shakers involved in what is California. It is here in Southern California that almost everything, good or bad, has its beginning and the rest of the world is in its wake. That's a part of the dynamics that is Southern California. So I believe it's appropriate that we come here today to Town Hall to tell you of an odyssey which started 5 years ago, and surely will involve every one of you, eventually all men everywhere. And as this involvement grows, know for a fact that the world will never again be the same. I want you to work with me for just a second to make what may be a historical moment work. I want you to try something. Abandon with me, if you will, for a moment, those trappings that we all bring into a gathering such as Town Hall. Try for these few moments to be yourselves rather than to be involved in your economic situation, your social or political commitments. Those things are a part of us all the time. For a while, simply be an individual American. Okay? For me, this odyssey started, as I said, 5 years ago. I was originally picked to host what we figured would be a bold new programming experiment at KABC Radio. Originally in the fall of 1978, after the Dodger season, it was decided to devote 2 hours, 10 to midnight, in exploring the world of spiritualism and the occult. Well, I said no. I didn't know anything about spiritualism or occult or even what it was, but they were quite emphatic and they asked me to think about it positively. With some negotiation, we decided to make the show on a little broader base than it actually came out. To present a thorough investigating form, facts, data, information, research into ongoing events, the personalities involved in this media presentation. Things that did not generally find themselves into the mainstream of media presentation, thus denying public access to this information. Behind that effort, the professionalism, the integrity, and the resources of KABC and the American Broadcasting Company, and they have always remained full with me. The experience was shattering. For KABC, Open Mind quickly established itself as a solid success, often generating audiences in that time period greater than the morning and afternoon drive day parts of all but 1 or 2 of the Los Angeles radio stations. And as Lynn mentioned, not only did it become the #1 rated show in its time period in Los Angeles, but also in the United States of America. And I want to quickly add that the success of Open Mind was not because of the host of the show, not at all, but it was the material. And I thought this was a dramatic reflection of a new level of information that people everywhere are hungry to have. So intense the interest, however, that KABC is now in the process of editing down over 5 years of Open Mind programs to make them available in cassette form. The demand for those tapes the world over is that great. The programming experiment at KABC established itself as a viable focal point, a voice of what we now see as a dramatic new age. I must confess to you that over the last 5 years, week after week, closely held belief systems gave way to a new reality. Stunning, staggering, and simmering underneath the view of the world most commonly seen by the public. There are many fascinating things I could tell you here, but I assure you that would take hours. But the most important thing for you to understand was the discovery that our research turned up of a vast, global subculture, if I can call it that. A subculture that knows no political bounds, no cultural bounds, no religious bounds. It's comprised of deeply dedicated men and women the world over, existing in the halls of government, the nation's large corporations and small, people everywhere. They all view the machinery which makes the world work as not working as well as it should. Governments everywhere, our system of goods and services everywhere, our religions are simply not doing the job they were intended to do. Further, there is this global realization that these great and vital institutions in human life cannot really be changed now, or patched up, or made right again. In short, the establishment in all of these areas is not effectively addressing its resources and talents to making this a better world for all of its people. Indeed, it seems to be content and maintaining the status quo. The maintenance of this status quo is done by control. Control is the key word. Further, we have found that if one controls two things, they control everything. And we see that vividly demonstrated in the history of the United States. The saga of the American people and taking this primitive land and building it into America, we all know, was truly one of the most inspiring events in the pages of history. But to achieve this monumental task, the American people had two vital tools. And with those tools, they carved out this nation, and there's nothing like it on earth, even to this day. Those tools, inexpensive money and inexpensive energy. But during the course of this century, to the detriment of all of us, those tools have been taken away from all Americans. They are now the two single most expensive commodities that must be used by each and every one of us. Now, in this highly technological society, we must have energy to live and to work and to enjoy life. Likewise, in these times, we must have money, credit, to have a home, an automobile, to make a living, to be a contributing and productive member of our society, and to meet the obligations that we have to ourselves and family. Where they were tools, now expensive commodities. And after we've expended our individual wealth to provide those for ourselves, for living and survival, there is precious left to do anything, much less improve the quality of our individual lives. The greatest of these costs is energy. Nothing saps away our individual wealth more than energy. You pay an energy cost for every bite of food you eat, for every stitch of clothing that you wear, for every good and services you consume. And it doesn't take much of a mathematician to add up the hidden cost of energy and then the obvious energy cost on top of that to see how great it has become for the average family budget. It is staggering, beyond realization for most, until you begin to think about it. There are a few who, after paying the cost of energy and money simply to survive, have the sufficient wealth to go on to work, to use these vital tools to do as Americans have always done, and carve out a still greater nation, leading a way to a peaceful, productive, and tranquil world. The genius and innovation, productivity, and drive of the American people have been severely blunted by this change of events, the systematic converting of a tool to a commodity, and a very expensive one at that. As individuals, we all suffer. As a nation, we are station-keeping, and that task is growing more difficult with each passing day. And this great problem here in America is being felt the world over. Make no mistake about it, we as individuals are controlled in these vital resources we must have, and that they come at a very high price. Obviously, there are those that use this control to maintain power and dominion and amass great wealth. However, for the most part, those involved in this process are themselves caught up in the web of control over the people, not out of any ominous schemes, but in the prevailing ethic of our time. As obvious as these controls are, there has been another more insidious one, the control of thought. Now, I'm not talking about a mystic or a scientist somewhere using mental or technological prowess or some authority meting out some punishment for one who thinks differently. I'm talking about the ethic of the age. We're in the midst of that struggle now, and to be aware of it is one of the reasons I'm with you. This drama is being played in many areas of human thought at this very moment. But today, I want to concentrate on just one, and that is the science of energy. We have been told that the enormous cost we must endure for energy is the way it is. To deal with it, we conserve energy, we use the sun or wind, and there is scheme upon scheme, but there is little we can do because science says there are fundamental laws of physics that cannot be violated. I suggest to you here that as long as that thought prevails, control prevails. Back to that subculture I was talking to you about. There is a cadre of dedicated scientists who simply refuse to accept that the so-called laws of physics, beautifully bound in the textbooks of our finest citadels of knowledge, were given by the lawmaker of the universe, its creator. They had an open mind and determined that there must be a better way and set about to do it. I stand before you today filled with excitement to tell you that they have done it. There is now a new technology that says that we live on this planet in a sea of energy, and it surrounds us all the time. This new technology taps that sea of energy and converts it into an unlimited source of usable energy. The only cost of tapping the energy is the device that does it so well. And once you have the device, your only cost for all the energy you will ever need, for home, business, for our nation, will be in the initial cost of the device and its maintenance. Do I stand before you a very gratified man today, for germane to the development of this technology right here in Los Angeles was an open and candid exhortation, data, discussion of science on KABC, which triggered the thought in the mind of a young genius among us. He doesn't like to be called like that, but we do it. In study, trial and error, an open mind, and dedication to the welfare of his fellow man, he did bring forth the technology to tap the sea of energy and make it work. The so-called free energy device is here. It's online. It works. It has very little technological work remaining before it can be in your hands and everyone's, including that little old lady down the street on a fixed income who has to deny herself necessary energy to keep warm in the winter and cool in the summer and cook her food. At the moment, the cost of energy makes her life miserable, and the ethic of the time is that nobody cares. In a few moments, you will meet the young genius who's brought the technological wonder to us. You will see here at Town Hall, for the first time in history, a simple breadboard version of the device, and you will watch it work. And I assure you, you will be amazed. For what you are seeing, if you were to go to Caltech or any of our colleges around here, they would say, why, that can't be done. That's impossible. Baloney. But as important as the technology is, what is even more important is another effort which had its roots in the concept of that vast global subculture at work in this world. Total and free availability to energy is as much a right of the people of this planet as is their right to the air they breathe. Now, surely that thought shakes the very foundation of the existence of those who use energy for control. Well, for those whose intent is control, to have their toys taken away will pave the way for a bright, new, and productive world for all men and women of this planet, and we welcome it. For those caught up unwittingly in this web, we are looking at freedom. Those responsible for the development of this technology are literally giving it to the world. The basic scientific principles have been placed in the public domain. It is the right of the people. Those in the forefront of the development of this technology will now refine it, condense it, test it, make it extremely reliable and safe, design a compact and efficient device to be installed in every home in America and in the world. Where that's not practical, units will be designed for industry and for the utility companies and distribution systems the world over, little ones for individual appliances, and for the use of the automotive and avionics industry. The uses are limitless, bounded only by our imagination. Then a remarkable thing will happen. Something which defies the ethic of the way we now provide goods and services one for the other. Those responsible will turn to the small businessmen, the world over, who want to improve themselves in the task of providing the world with free energy, men who can manufacture, distribute, and service this amazing equipment. They will be given the plans to go ahead. In return, their only payback to those who made this possible is that they make sure that the technology is made available at the lowest possible price to everyone. Surely they're to make a profit, to be rightly rewarded for their work, but they are not to engage in the great American pastime of conveniently substituting the word profit for greed. Licensing agreements for this will be spelled out to the limits of legality, but to guarantee everyone involved works for the benefit of their middleman, those involved will also market the device, and you can rest assured it will be at the lowest possible price, pacing the market, affordable to that little old lady living on a fixed income. Those who involve themselves in this effort, there will be no royalty paid to those who brought it online. Their benefits and their profits are more profound. They will have been contributing to a bright new world for all men everywhere. It's interesting to read some of the proposals which has already come in from our largest manufacturers. They spell out, in one case in particular that comes to mind, they included flowcharts and how if they were allowed to manufacture and distribute this device around the world, that we could make billions of dollars a month. Well, if Mr. Bedini and the foundation is making billions of dollars a month, that little old lady down the street on a fixed income is not being helped one bit. But it is the ethic of big business. It is not the ethic of this global subculture of legitimate. The structure, the bureaucracy, the quest for income above and beyond legitimate profits because the market will bear is antiquated, destructive, debilitating, counterproductive, and a tool used to continue the maintenance of the status quo, the control of energy, the control of the people. The large corporation was denied in preference to the resources of the common man, the hard-working, dedicated little man, if you will. Thousands of them everywhere will be employed in this most important task before us in this new age. I must tell you, however, those involved have felt the wrath of those who do not want you to have free energy, who don't really give a damn about that little old lady down the street on a fixed income, who care not about developing nations spending most of their precious wealth on energy supplies, remaining among the have-nots of the world, creating international tensions which put us on the brink of destruction and the welfare of mankind in general. They want the money derived from energy sources, they want the power, and they do not want you and me to have free access to all of the energy we want and need. In short, they care nothing about you, me, America, or the world. Well, I'm here to tell you that their time has come. We need those kind of individuals in our society like we each need a case of terminal cancer. Yet, those involved have been threatened. Now that it's realized that the technology is real, what they see is an ominous dark cloud on the horizon forward. Not only will their energy toys be taken away, but it doesn't take too much to realize that the device itself represents but the tip of a technological iceberg, a technology which is far from their reach. They see that this subculture is systematically arming itself with men, women, who cannot be corrupted and swayed from their determination to make this world a better place for everyone. They see vast financial resources coming into place. In fact, what they see is a steamroller, a philosophically advanced, deeply endowed, technologically advanced steamroller, an army dedicated to the betterment of man. And it's coming their way, and their weapons against it just do not work. Weapons like greed, threats of violence, or violence itself, manipulation of government, money, or even the courts. Today, we're seeing the beginning of the end of that control over the lives of all of us. Despite the threats, the hints, the violence, the tapped phones, the efforts to discredit, homes and labs broken into, things and papers stolen, the die is cast. Free energy is here. It is a part of a new reality, and the battle lines are drawn even now. There are most likely some here today involved in the production and distribution of electrical energy. To you, what is offered is a blessing to you and your stockholders. As these devices penetrate the market, you will see in time a reduction in the demand curve for your energy, which will reduce the need for expensive capital formation, new nuclear plants, or fossil burning and polluting plants, and the eventual elimination of all polluting sources of electrical energy. You will have a better and more inexpensive way to provide your services. For you too, your source of energy can and will be free. All stockholders and your customers in the ecology will profit by that. There may be some here that are in the petroleum and gas industry. For you, the changing demand will be gradual, allowing more than ample time to change marketing from a society which uses your products for energy, which in turn has polluted our environment to a critical level, to a society which uses your products to make the lands fertile again, provide food, clothing, and shelter, and a myriad of valuable, useful products for the enrichment of man. Demand for your products will never wane, but there are greater uses for the good of man on earth, for petroleum, than burning it for energy. For others who may require energy in their daily and personal business lives, the near elimination of energy costs will bring on a new level of life and productivity which cannot be achieved in any other fashion. Because of that, the world will flourish again, and I don't need to draw those pictures for you here. I am sure that you see them vividly. To all here, know that the task ahead is difficult, and there may be some dangers for those involved. And there are those who do not want this new technology. But those responsible are persuaded that the most powerful force on earth is an aroused American public. For that force, we call upon our friends in the media, some of them here today. We know that there will be politicians and bureaucrats who will want to impose new taxes and regulations on the devices to make up for the enormous revenue losses to government this technology will bring on. Government is one of the greatest profiteers of energy costs. The business of government is not energy, but rather the well-being of the people, and they should get about that business. We know that there will be efforts of those that are the powerful, whose power is centered in energy, to sweep this technology under the table and keep it out of the hands of the people. They have done that before. They will not do that again. In this regard, I am reminded of one of the saddest chapters of our history and one of the most miserable moments in the history of capitalism. At the turn of the century, there was another man of vision and insight among us. His name was Nikola Tesla. His genius gave us the alternating current, the electric generator, the dynamo, the electromagnetic wave that we use at radio stations and television stations. The list of Tesla's accomplishments was enormous. Our society would literally fall down without his inventions. Tesla said he could, and was about indeed to, produce a system which would give everybody all of the energy they could ever use free. And this was around the turn of the century. All they would need is a simple device with a ground and an antenna. Well, when J.P. Morgan, who had been his financial backer, heard of this, he withdrew his support, used his influence to write him out of the history books, make free energy something impossible to patent, and later Tesla died of hunger. That story is another about Tesla. Sometime I'd like to tell it to you. We now know that Tesla was right. He could have done it. And had he been allowed, the world around the turn of the century would have had free energy. But it was the ethic of the J.P. Morgans that energy was something to sell, the distribution of energy was something to sell, and as a carrot for Washington, something to tax, and free energy disappeared. Personally, I am persuaded that this development would have brought a new quality of life to the world then, and there are compelling reasons to believe that there would have been no such thing as World War I, the Depression, World War II, and the miseries that have followed. I'm sure that Morgan did not do this out of a desire to plunge the world into further misery. He simply did it because of the ethic of his time. That event will not take place again. Any effort to deny free energy will be a detriment to you, me, America, and mankind. Those involved are prepared for this, and we are confident that the people themselves will not allow any further resistance to change. To the politicians and to the bureaucrats who attempt to thwart the introduction and the use of free energy by the people by means of unwarranted taxes and restrictions, they will be met with a full weight of judicial review by the people and in the courts of the land and in the court of public opinion. I can assure you now that those responsible here will utilize their vast resources to make the name, rank, serial number, face, address, telephone number, and other vital data about any such public service a household word in every American home, as this is the man who's working to deny you your rightful access to free and abundant industry or energy, and what are you going to do about him, America? And for those in the private sector who might attempt in some way to affect the same thing by attempting to buy and vary, by imposing unconscionable profits or other means, expect the full resources of those involved to bring similar public attention to your enterprise and feel the wrath of the American people. But all this need not be. We've moved into a new age, a new level of technology which has brought on new demands of the human spirit and genius. Rather than fight change, which would vastly improve the quality of life for all mankind, get behind it. Join the cause. Demand of government, business, finance, their total cooperation in getting this technology into the mainstream of American life, working in every possible way to effectively bring it into being, and at the lowest cost. Demand of academia, they realize that they have been closed-minded in the development of this new science, and others this science leads to, and get busy building a new science, a pristine one, rather than providing a science and technology which often is built upon the garbage of science rather than the true one. To our friends in the media, your role, as it is in the preservation of our republic, is vital. Your genius and abilities are needed to keep those forces which may want to stifle this technology at bay. I feel confident that your craft and expertise will be adroitly applied, and being that ever watchful watchdog of the affairs of our land, equally concerned as we all are that this technology prevail quickly, unimpeded with some of the levels of resistance which might be arrayed against it if it is void of the public forum. This new technology does underscore an old saying as never before, that being the survival of the fittest. But as our ethic conveniently substituted the meaning of the words profit and greed, so has the meaning of the word fittest been changed. It used to be the one who was the strongest, the most shrewd, the most cunning, the most devious, a whole list of marvelous human attributes. It no longer means that. The fittest means the one who serves mankind the most. Hopefully, all of us here will quickly move into the vanguard of a new generation of Americans who are indeed the fittest. Now I'm very proud to young man who made this happen for us here today. It should be pointed out that he's not the only one. There are others who have produced such a device that works, produces more energy than it uses. So the technology cannot be stopped. It's going on all over the world. However, his genius, I feel, will change the way the world works. His decision to make this outgrowth of insight a gift to mankind speaks for himself. Words really do not say it. And presenting to you Mr. John C. Bedini. John. John will show you a crude but effective prototype of the future. John is one of the first involved in one of the most exciting events of our time, I feel, the formation of a non-profit StarTech Foundation. Its purpose is the research and development of new levels of technology undreamed by many, felt to be impossible by most, but it is not. It's well for you to know, the men and women of StarTech, your guides to a world and worlds unknown. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank Town Hall today for inviting me here today. And what I want to do is not get into anything technical with the machine, but explain to you in simple principles how the machine operates. There, I think we can take the camera off there. See, I think you can hear it. What we have is a bank of storage batteries down there that are from World War II. It is impossible to charge those batteries with a conventional charger because this type of machinery does not allow that, because the energy which it is using actually changes these batteries to a different form. The machine the reason that we have the motor here is to give you the illusion that we have to have something to spin this machine. In the end, this machine does not need this motor, and it does run itself. This is a very crude machine. The wire going to the load is about as thin as your hair. Therefore, a baby could operate this kind of power without getting electrocuted. I will short out the machine so that you can see it accelerate. But the main points of this machine are that this is what they call a gravity stress converter. And what I mean by that is there are gravity fields surrounding the Earth. They hold you here. What we do is tap a little bit about that and convert it into usable electrical energy. At the same time, if you see 600 watts appear here, there's 600 watts in this machine down here in the iron bars to drive it forward past the motor. The motor is there as a stabilizer unit. That's what we're going to use it for. If I disconnect the load from this machinery, you will see that the motor cannot even turn this machinery. So it's up to your imagination after that to figure out what is turning that motor. And I'll get started here. First, though, I want to introduce Steve here, who put this machine together. This is Steve's work. And if you would please, after the demonstration of the machine, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions within a reasonable limit. Don't ask me to tear the machine apart here in front of you. I will, however, go into a little bit more technical explanation than what I'm able to do here right now. But the main thing is I want you to see it run, I want you to see it accelerate. I will disconnect the load from the machine. You will see that your wall current will not turn the machine. Here's Steve.
Also, we want to let you know it makes a little bit of noise because it's a primitive one of our first setups on this machine. And it will make some little noise. The other one. The one in the hand, right? Okay. But this machine, he'll dead short. Now, you know with AC current, dead short, you'll start the wire with fire. We all know it's running on short wire, right? We also will get, when we dead short this, you'll see it, the machine will run faster. If you had a generator, conventional generator from outside, we use everyday commercial use, we dead short it, we'd have a big fire, but the machine would blow down. This does everything the opposite. So John, we're going to do the demonstration now, or what?
Yeah, one thing I want to explain here is I'm not going after brilliancy today. What I'm going after is look. I want to simulate a standard heater that would be found in somebody's home that uses electrical energy. Now this motor is a 1/3 horsepower General Electric motor, Westinghouse motor, excuse me. It draws only 5 amps from the wall. It's found on every blower squirrel cage system that you use for air conditioning and heating. This isn't even a capacitor run motor. It's only 1/3 horsepower. There's no way possible that this motor can turn this machine, and what I want to do is demonstrate that for you right off here. Now we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, we're going to start it up, and I'm going to need Steve here to hold it. And then later on I'll come back and answer any questions that you have. As I screw in the light bulbs, these will dim down, but the wire will never burn up. What will happen here is the generator itself will start to pull the motor. And when that happens, it's running for free from the wall. And then I'll disconnect the load, and I'll show you that this motor that comes out of this wall will not drive the machine. Measurements are kind of misleading sometimes. Me, myself, I've had 11 years of conventional engineering, I believed what the textbook said until one night when I saw that this machine was actually possible. Now, this is a very crude prototype. The motor which is powering this machine has to be there for everybody to accept reality. However, this type of machine does not need this motor. Generators can be built to where these batteries go for years and years and years. Here. It is impossible to charge this battery off a battery charger. You'll burn it up. But yet the machine puts the energy back into the battery. As I stated earlier, these are World War II batteries. There's not even sulfuric acid in the battery. We make a special electrolyte and put it in that battery so it can carry that kind of current.
It's 1:30. I know you're fascinated, but I know the rules of the game here are to take a little break right now for those that feel like you need to leave. And John and Steve, myself will be here for as long as those who want to talk to us about it can. Is that a fascinating demonstration here for you? I think it can be said that you have seen one of the first, the historical moment. Thank you very much. Routinely, I moderate the question period myself, but I'm afraid I wouldn't understand your question, so I'm going to ask you this. All right, well, thank you very much. Let us start with the questions. I guess, Jim Townsend.
I have a question. I come from Anaheim, and we're involved in energy and generation, and we're on the hook for about $1 billion in the next 35 years. What's it going to do to our utility?
What will this do to the utility companies? Well, first of all, I think it'll put an end to their need as these things get into the marketplace, as I mentioned in the talk. Wanted to know what this will do to the utility companies. We feel very strongly that it will stop the need for capital formation or begin to decrease that. This is going to be a gradual process as this moves into the mainstream. And certainly these devices themselves can be built of such a size to adequately take care of the utility companies as well. We see no reason to dismantle the great power grids we have in the country.
Energy on its own. Why do we need batteries? Why do you have the walls? I wonder if you could explain it once again exactly what is happening.
Okay. First of all, the reason that that plug is in the wall is, like we explained earlier, this is a very crude prototype of this type of machinery. You see, the motor itself being plugged into your wall cannot turn that machine. That machine has to resonate and turn through its own load. You follow what I'm saying? In other words, once we start the machine's on its own. That is a dead magnetic lock. If Steve turns on, the reason for the batteries is you're not getting any energy unless you supply some field to get that energy from. What we are doing with that magnetic field is making the gravitational energy get trapped. This type of generator, when the rotors come up forward, then you get your energy, not when they cut the magnetic lines of force. In other words, this is charged through that magnetic field, and as it comes up, it discharges into one heck of a pulse. And that pulse at the same time goes back to the batteries that are supplying the energy to supply the field current. So therefore you're getting that for nothing, and you're getting the rotational speed for nothing. You're getting the acceleration. Under dead short, do you think that you could plug an extension cord into your wall and not stall your gasoline engine? If you short your alternator out on your car while it's idling, your engine is stopping dead. Mine is speeding up. No, first of all, you see, this is the question that's asked most of the time, perpetual motion. I don't think anybody understands the term perpetual motion. Perpetual motion is where you're standing right now, because me and you are going to be dead before the earth ever stops. This machine is going to have the kind of maintenance you would give your automobile. That's like saying, well, I never have to put oil in my car again. Okay, so the term perpetual motion is the wrong term here. This is not a perpetual machine. We're not making that claim. What we're saying is we are getting a reduced energy cost from this machine. We're putting in very little and we're getting a lot out.
You have 10,000 hours of life.
Do you have 10,000 hours of life? What is the life?
Steve, how long has this machine been running? This machine has been demonstrated and left on for 2 or 3 months. You can see that it's very crudely put together. The tolerances aren't even. Let's put it this way: the gaps on these rotors, you can stick a ruler in between, and there has been no problem. First of all, there's no laminations in this machine. It's typically iron rotating bars and brass bars. There are no eddy currents whatsoever in this machine. There's nothing to heat up. The only thing that could possibly heat up is the illusion that we call a motor. That would break down before the generator. We can run this generator under dead short without any failure. We've done it. Once you break even, which is 100% above the motor, we're not saying 98%, we're saying 100%. Once you do that, the motor, the amps input to the motor starts to reduce itself on a square law principle. In other words, the first bulb that you screw in, which would be a 100-watt bulb past the 600-watt rating, give or take a few watts, will reduce that from 5.5 amps input down to 3.5 amps. That means now the machine's dragging the motor around. Okay? The minute you dead short that, it's as if you plug the motor into the wall and just let it with no load on it. You're not burning any energy. You have to put a load on something to burn energy outside of its normal job.
It seems to me, I'm sure you consider this yourself.
But yes, you can take the input, put it back into the output. That machine has already been made. As far as the environmental aspect of this, you couldn't steal enough energy from this universe to hurt a fly. Okay? It's being wasted every day. You call it radiation. I call it a breakdown in your atmosphere.
Do you have another place to do more about it? How do they get together?
Reference was made to your foundation. Would you tell us something of it, please?
It's the foundation is a group of people which know this type technology and have been using it now. Some are powering their own homes. However, the financial assistance right at this point in time hasn't really been there. In other words, it's building up right now. It's just a matter of time. It might be a year or so before these type machines will become common use like your washing machine in your own home.
What will they cost?
Cost factor. Let's say this little old lady down the street in Pasadena, wherever she happens to be. What would it cost her?
It would cost her about $500. One load of coal.
Another question? Yes, Frank.
John, I've read some of your papers, and I'm unclear whether you're capturing this field, the energy field, with your magnetics, or whether you're doing it in the storage batteries. Can you elaborate on that?
How are you tapping into this energy field? Through your storage batteries or through magnetics?
Steve will point out as I say this, if you gentlemen can just stand over a little bit over to the side there. What Steve's about to point out here is something that's very unique. You see, to capture the gravity stress field as we know it in this type of generator, you must produce what we call two figure-8 patterns. One in the forward direction, one in the backward direction. Now, what this is when Steve throws that switch, all that the batteries are doing here is making what we call a dead magnetic short or a complete circuit for the magnetic lines of flux to go through. In other words, no flux can leak in the machine. Steve will show you that. You see, he can't even break it loose from the poles. All right? Now what happens here is when this machine, after you get it running and you put the correct load on the machine, depending on what the generator is built for, what happens here is you get a magnetic lock, and then what will happen is, as it sees the load, those magnets on the rotor become bigger magnets. And the bigger pole overtakes the smaller pole, and the release of that pole is energy, and we call that tachyon capture, or stressing the gravity stress wave of the Earth. This, by the way, this frequency is a very low frequency coming out of the machine. Me and Steve have deliberately put a 3,600 RPM motor on there. What I will demonstrate for you in a minute is it's non-speed dependent. The minute the motor stops, the lights go up. Not the minute you slow down, the lights go up.
Now, we heard a high-pitched noise, and I just been wondering what that was. You probably explain that. What is the high-pitched noise?
I'm not sure it's the generator.
It's a generator. It's just a...
When the generator starts up, we hear a high-pitched noise. What's the source of that noise?
Okay, Steve has his theory on that, and I have mine on that, so I'll give you both. I say that when it comes out of the magnetic lock, you hear a crack. That's a high-pitched noise. When you hear that crack, that particular sounds almost like a fly swatter hitting a piece of metal, right?
Now, are you talking about two poles there?
Right. We're talking about all four poles there. When that comes out of that lock, what happens is if Steve will hold that pole 90 degrees from the Earth's surface that you're standing on, move that pole 90 degrees up, Steve. When that pole is right in that position is where you get your energy. That's impossible, because if Steve moves that pole into the magnetics, it should be getting its energy as it cuts the magnetic lines of force. That's very untrue with this type of energy. What you do is stress the magnetic field, the rebound action is your energy, and you get that for nothing.
Now, that's passing by the horizontal red bars, and that's where you're hearing the noise.
No, you are hearing the noise the minute it comes loose of that. That's the magnetic crack that you're hearing.
Maybe it's fixing ice.
Right, exactly.
And we another question.
What is the ultimate source of energy that is going to be present here? Is it the universe that you're going to modify?
In lay terms, what is this force you were tapping into?
We're just using the energy of the gravity. That's all we're doing. We're just cutting the Earth's magnetic field the way an ELF tuner or something would go through and find all the geomagnetic zones. In other words, the Earth is a very powerful generator. The energy's been here for years. It's just you have to devise a means to capture that energy. Now that is a dead zero energy because, as the question was brought up earlier, how can you transmit the energy through such thin wire? There's a very good reason for that. The reason that you can't measure the energy is because there is no energy in the wires. You see, it's two zero waves, what I call a zero wave. They mean nothing. They're absolute zeros until they couple into a load. Then you see what you call energy, which is light. You can only relate to light, heat, that's energy. Okay, so the idea here is to make a machine which takes the gravity stress, converts it into a non-zero energy, and then put it over here into the light bulb and form an electromagnetic wave, which you call energy.
What is the
between two planets, between two stars, where the gravity is almost null, would it work?
Well, it's effectively non-existent for most of our technology.
First of all, this is a zero-point energy machine, and the higher you get it off the ground, the more it'll put up. All right? You see, what's limiting this machine right now is the Earth is grounding it out. This is a very high-frequency energy that you are converting here. Okay? You measure it in the form of very low waves, but it's actually beyond the speed of light. Okay? It's 27, maybe 100 times beyond the speed of light. The computers don't have enough numbers to register this out. We haven't made anything like that ever. You see, this is what's known, you can term this as a tachyon type converter. In other words, what you're dealing with here is a machine which converts radiation into energy. It sucks it up like a sponge sucks up water.
Let me go back to your last answer. Did I really hear you say it exceeds the speed of light?
Yes, I did. I'll say that it exceeds the light 27 times. And come in the future, you'll find out you can exceed the light speed. First of all, we're going higher in frequencies. This machine's working already past your highest frequency. The captain is doing it with iron bars. That's theoretically impossible. Okay? I've had 11 years conventional engineering, so I know what I'm saying to you. We're working in a low frequency wave which carries the waves far beyond the speed of light.
Question is down over there where a crowd in a steel pipe and everybody isolated and where's steel still coming.
If it were magnetically isolated, not gravitational, but magnetically isolated, would it
Earth's field.
In an Earth's field. Hertz.
Yes. You see, the low frequency gravitational wave or any low frequencies which we determine are too low to measure actually have real high magnitudes. And if you go to the textbooks, you will find out low frequencies travel through Faraday cages, they travel through iron pipe, they travel through solid rock, and yet you have the same amount of energy in the end that you started out with, providing that the phasing on the transmitter is detected correctly.
I wonder, does it have to work in a resistive load, or can you drive a motor with an inductive motor? Does it have to be a resistive load?
Must it work in a resistive motor? Can you drive a motor with it?
No, you can drive a lot of motors with this. You can take and as long as the motor has the same number of poles as the generator, you can drive any kind of induction motor you want, capacitor, starter, whatever. There are 3 or 4 of these machines running throughout the country that are driving 2 and 3 horsepower induction motors. Okay, but it doesn't look like this. This is a very crude prototype just to demonstrate the principle to you of acceleration forward under load. You see, what happens is we want to reduce the cost of energy and get the 1,000 watts out. In other words, we want to beat that figure that our scientists tell us that we can't do. The word can't do does not exist to me.
Is your technology related in any way to Tesla's concept?
Is your technology related to the concept that was referred to that Tesla came up with?
This technology is by no means new. This technology is based upon Tesla, T. Henry Moray, the actual physics of Thomas E. Bearden, and many others, Lindsay and a number of others, which they applied for patents and it was denied them, and the information in the end was buried. You are looking at the one surviving machine right now in a crude prototype form. There are other machines throughout the country. I would say there are 50, maybe 75 people right now who have all the answers for the technology besides myself.
I have to sneak this one in, I'm sorry. Is the patent position such that you are able to protect yourself and be able to give this away as was described earlier?
this little advancement right here is free for the taking. It was written up. What we tried to do was explain these certain waves to people who bought the books. In other words, we wanted them to take a look at two waves that were out of phase to make zero.
Yes, you mentioned before that you have 11 years of conventional engineering. Could you tell us what your academic and work background is in conventional engineering?
You were not introduced formally. Would you introduce yourself? Would you give us your academic and your business background, please?
Okay, I was trained by Bell and Hall Industries through correspondence. In other words, I was in Vietnam at the time, and the only way I could get my education was to take it through correspondence. So I do hold a degree from Bell and Howell in electronics engineering design. I also hold a degree in microwave electronics from the U.S. Army Technical Schools. I have 11 years in the audio power amplifier field in the design of special amplifiers of low frequency and medium range frequencies, and my present company builds stereo power amplifiers for the audio community.
Yes, John, can you tell us the difference between your motor and Thomas Newman's, who you're familiar with it, and which you think is more likely to do the job of giving us free energy?
Are you familiar with Thomas Newman's motor? And if you are, can you compare it to yours? And which is more likely to give us some free energy?
Okay, go.
Well, I will only answer that question one way. This is a trick question. First of all, the two motors are not the same. Second of all, Joe Newman probably is he's the second. He actually was first before this with his rotating magnetic field, and his principle is completely different than what this principle is here. His motor, however, produces torque. This one produces electrical energy. Okay? His runs itself. They are both identical, both tapping the same fields. Okay? So there really is no difference as far as his machine looks different than this machine. They both function the same.
One final question from someone who hasn't had a question yet. Yes, Mr. Ryan.
Has this system been tested by an independent agency, and if so, are the reports available?
Has this system been tested by an independent agency, and if so, are the reports available?
Well, this system, this particular type of generator has been tested many times in the past. The information has been varied. This particular type of generator that me and Steve have been studying and worked out some of the design problems with it was done 20 years ago in Germany. It was called the Kromrey Converter. A German invented this type of machine. However, if you go to pull the information on this machine, no such information ever exists.